a little very famous O'Callaghan tune, a street performer from Ireland. And this is a very famous street performing instrument. And I play in Boston Common with that.
Cool.
Music venue. So
That's really cool.
I'm an arts nonprofit that does entrepreneurial and crisis management. Right. And I work with a lot of individual artists, and so you'll see them. And I work with all the nature people mainly because I'm working with another really well-known character in town who does the Frederick Law Olmsted play, but he's also running the Friends of Jamaica Pond. And we are trying to save the Emerald Necklace.
Awesome.
So that's what the photos are about.
Okay, we're good to go. Can you just clap for me?
Clap. 1, 2.
All right. Good. Thank you.
Okay. This is kind of like a rehash of what we were just talking about, but if you could just give me your name and what exactly you do.
Okay. Well, my name is Stephen Baird. I wear several different hats. I have them on my head. I'm an artist, and I have performed as a folk musician and puppeteer and crowd enchanter for since 1968, 60. And I toured. I played 2,000 campuses all over the country, and part of what I did was I was a street performer, and the Boston police arrested my audience in 1972, and I have since then been an advocate for street performers, and I'm an advocate for artists. As I toured and performed, I watched how cultural communities grew and how they shrank, and so I set up a nonprofits here to kind of mitigate that, so that there's not these massive up and downs with the kind of the structural part of the arts business, so that artists don't go through acute times of poverty, especially during recessions. So I'm an artist, an art administrator, and an advocate. That's how I do it. My 3 A's, and and they have various different roles. And I'm the executive director for Community Arts Advocates. And one of the programs underneath that is a program called Street Arts and Buskers Advocates. And I work with street performers all over the world, and I subsidize some documentary films on that.
Cool.
And so some of it uses my nonprofit work. A lot of it is legal work. You'll see extensive legal arguments protecting artists from being arrested for performing in public places. And I'm normally working with attorneys and artists, and I do all the legal and historical research to help them.
Could you go a little bit further into what exactly the main goal of the community arts and street artists and busker advocacy is? It's
well, the mission is that I've believe that self-expression is a basic human right, not just a First Amendment right, but a human right. Okay. And especially in foreign countries where your life is often and your life was on the line, and even as late as 1970s in this country, and specifically in Boston. So there's been a change in how police behave and how aggressive and how corrupt they were. When I was fighting the Boston Police Department, there was no women on the Boston Police Department, no Hispanics, no blacks, and they were being arrested pretty much on an annual basis for being part of the mafia.
Oh, wow.
And many of them are in the federal pen for killing people. So it's not that, it's a generation, so you may not know about it, but there's the fire chief and the police chief and all of them were burning down buildings with people in it for insurance money.
Wow.
And so I've been in federal court for lots of different reasons, but in the 1970s I was there to protect artists, myself and some of my friends, because they arrested them for playing on Boston Common, and they actually arrested the audience.
Really?
Yeah, and so I was not happy, and I challenged the city of Boston in 1972 and 73, and that was the name of the organization then was the Boston Street Singers Cooperative. I was working with Ruthana, who was a woman that was arrested, and Paul Cole, who dressed up as Ben Franklin and sang on the streets, because Ben Franklin was one of our earliest street performers. All early newspapers were written in verse and sung, because most people couldn't read. The printing press democratized news. Otherwise, it was only the very rich or the church at that time, which was often the same thing, that had books. So the printing press changed the economics of information as the internet is changing it now. But so there's new technologies that increasingly make the information that we have shared by a larger public.
Okay.
And so the Street Arts and Buskers Advocates went through various stages. It was a Boston Street Singers Cooperative, just me and a few other musicians who were being threatened with arrest. And then it became the Street Performers Guild when they were trying to ban street performers from Faneuil Hall in Quincy Market, and there were some jugglers that were involved. So it went from musicians to guild to performers, and then it became the Street Artist Guild when I started doing people like Sidewalk Sam and chalk drawing, and then it became the Buskers Advocates, because I used to have big guild meetings and potluck dinners, but organizing street performers is organizing cats. They like to wander off and and do their own thing.
Right.
So I have this structure, and that's what it is, a nonprofit structure to help both with the legal issues and the nonprofit issues that a community goes through. But the mission is that self-expression is a basic human right, and that I use that to motivate all of the decisions I do with both community arts advocates and street arts and buskers advocates. And I work with very specific, disenfranchised parts of the population that are not getting their self-expression human rights. So it could be something like the Vietnamese down in Dorchester, or the Haitians, or the Puerto Ricans, or whatever it is. So I work with specific communities too.
And how has the current economic environment and just the status of the economy, has that affected street performing in a way, or?
Well, there's the economy always does it. I've studied street performing and its history and through the beginning of time. So there are hieroglyphics in Egyptian temples with people passing the plate and juggling, and then Nero banned street performers, and so they roamed the earth and populated the entire European area with mimes and jugglers. They've always been repressed. Pope Innocent III used to burn them at the stake.
Really?
Queen Elizabeth used to march street performers in front of her army so they would get shot first. So if they retreated, they get shot by her forces. If they didn't went forward, they got shot by the opposing force.
Wow.
So they were used as buffers. In this country, we've had people blinded and shot and hurt, and so it's nothing new. If you study it from the 1600s on. But as I mentioned, Ben Franklin sang on the street, so did Patrick Henry, Thomas Jefferson, court days. It's always been part of the marketplace. And when the marketplace is not doing well, recessions, then street performers, there's more people trying to do it, so there's increased competition. And a lot of professional artists who might have a gig or a teaching job all of a sudden are unemployed, so they're out street performing. So it is a kind of a release valve for the artist community to at least maintain their art and earn an income from it. It's where people get gigs, and they get invitations to do corporate parties or bar mitzvahs or weddings or festivals. People come by and invite them to perform. So it's part of the economic. They can't hide from it.
Well, in that case, could you walk me through like a normal day for you, I guess through your organization?
Different. I mean, for myself, here in this office, I'm often dealing with financial stuff and raising money. And I have give away free music lessons and free music instruments to Boston Public School children. So there's grant writing that's being done here. I'm maintaining the finances for 6 or 8 different projects. I also will receive a request, like I did just yesterday, for someone from Denmark that wants to interview street performers in New York. So I set up the interview. I will receive, a panic call normally once or twice a week from an artist who's being threatened with arrest. And right now there's legal battles going down in St. Augustine, Florida. There's another one in Charlottesville, North Carolina. There's ongoing issues in Spokane. There's federal court cases going on in Chicago and federal court cases in New York. So I get requests from attorneys, I get requests from artists, and I get requests from communities. Cincinnati called me up and they want to invite street performers to play down by the riverfront.
Oh, cool.
And in their new casino area on the riverfront, and so they were looking for model ordinances, and they were looking for how to attract street performers to play there. So you get the gambit of request, and I will have usually 2 or 3 different artists coming through here individually looking for support on their projects.
Okay. And I guess the last thing I want to ask is, why do you think it is important to advocate for street performers?
Well, street performers are, and I brought some books here and documentation. People have done their PhD studies on this subject, and I've worked with other people doing documentary films. I consider street performing not only be a basic human right, but also how our cultural foundation was created. When the slaves were emancipated, they weren't allowed in any clubs. They created the blues, tap dancing, jazz, all on the street. U.B. Blake played on the streets. Bessie Smith played on the streets. Irving Berlin, each immigrant group claims the street as because they're not part of society yet. So Irving Berlin sang on the streets of New York. Each new generation claims the street. So you have Slasher from the Clash. You have the Violent Femmes. You have Bruce Springsteen. You have people coming in from all over. Each person claims both. In this town, we had the famous person is Tracy Chapman, who played in Harvard Square when she was a tough student, and then eventually became, a star. But she developed both her talent and her audience and her style by performing on the streets of Harvard Square. And that's happened here in the subways. We had Martin Sexton, who went on to recording artist by playing in the subways. So it's important for our cultural foundation. It's important for disenfranchised part of societies to claim the streets and let out that frustration. I assert music and art, especially public art, decreases violence in your city because they can express their frustrations in creative ways instead of destructive ways. And then it actually defines community. Each culture claims the public space in different ways. So, you think of Faneuil Hall, you think of street performers.
Right.
So, and it's the same with Harvard Square. And that wasn't true, as right up to the 1970s. It took a lot of political and legal work to do it.
Okay.